Welcome to our course in web design. In today's lesson, we are giving you an introduction to JavaScript. This is actually our first lesson in JavaScript. And to start with, JavaScript is an essential part of web design. Now, to become a web developer, you need to have HTML, which we have taught, CSS, which we already know. Now, the next thing is JavaScript. It's very essential. Now, a brief discussion on JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is a programming language which is used to create um, apps, websites, and other things. Now, before before I think some years ago, JavaScript was only known as let's say a scripting language which is used to determine the behavior of JavaScript, behavior of a website, sorry, behavior of website and animations and other things. So before this day, we used to call it a toy language. But some previous years ago, Microsoft added JavaScript to it Microsoft Office, Windows 8 and then Windows 8.1, which gave us assurance that it can be used to create apps and other things. So now JavaScript is used to create mobile apps, web apps, and other things. So JavaScript is very important. Now you see that someone will ask, how do we install or how do we get JavaScript? By virtue, JavaScript is already installed in most of our phones, and then especially our browsers. Okay, web browsers. Most web browsers have, especially Google Chrome, which we are using, have JavaScript installed. So what we only need is to make our JavaScript codes ready, and we'll be ready to run it in the console. Okay. Now JavaScript actually runs in the console of a web browser. So we are going to go through that very soon. Now to start with, you need to create your HTML file, okay, in your text editor. So I have my home.html file already here. So I'll just add the HTML code which will allow me to the HTML syntax. So I have HT, then it already gives you the hint. So you click on enter, then you give it a title, um, JavaScript project. So I have my JavaScript project. I will save it, and now I will open it in the browser to actually see if my website is working. Now I have my browser open at the right side of the screen. Okay, let's. All right, so my project is here. JavaScript project is also on the title, and this is what I have. I don't have any element on the page, so you don't have it here. Now to get JavaScript running, you need to put your script tag in there, and JavaScript runs. We put JavaScript runs at the bottom of the page. So we come to the very last part of our page, and then give our script tag, and now we click on the script tag, and it gives us the hint. So we click on enter, then we have the JavaScript syntax there. So we are going to actually run our code in between this script. Okay, we are going to run in between this script. So we are going to write a JavaScript code, and then we initialize it and see how it works. So we are going to give a JavaScript command which is console.log, and then give anything like hello world. Now I told you that JavaScript runs in the console, so here we will save it, and then we will refresh our page. Now you see that we still don't have anything there because there is a document page. All right, JavaScript is HTML is a document page, so it's not going to appear here. Now JavaScript will rather appear in the console. That's why you say console.log. But we can actually also put a document. We can also write a document with the JavaScript syntax. We'll go through that. So now let's open the console and see what happens. So we right click on the page and go to inspect. Now the inspect page will open and we'll click on the console. Now you can see that you have hello world here. Okay, you have hello world here and the element is home.html. Okay, home.html, and when we click on it, you can see that it is here. You can see that what we did is also here. Okay, so when we come to the console, you can see the JavaScript here. Here you cannot edit it. You cannot edit it. You cannot do anything to it. There is the console. All right. So let's also write another thing to say maybe hello um JavaScript JavaScript. Let's save it and see. Now you can see that JavaScript is also here. All right. So we can also write it in the document page. So let's close this one. Then we can write it on the document page by using document.write. Okay. So we can say document.write. And now here we are saying it's document, so it's going to write it on the document page. And now the I am JavaScript is written on the page. Now when we inspect it and go to the console, you can see that there's nothing in the console because we have done nothing in the console. Okay, so there is simple introduction to JavaScript. Now someone will ask, this with this website have lot of JavaScript codes running, and putting all the JavaScript code here is not going to make our website look nice. So we create an external JavaScript file for it, just as we do for CSS. So we can link it here. So we can, what we do is that we create a new file, then name it in the same folder. Okay, so we say, and then the extension is JS. So we say main.js. So in HTML we say index dot maybe HTML. In CSS we say dot CSS. In JavaScript is dot JS. So we save it. Okay, and this is where we are going to write our JavaScript code. Still, we may need this the syntax there. So we are going to cut it and paste it at the console, at the JavaScript file or the JavaScript document. So we come here, and then here we need to actually make reference to it. We need to link it to the other thing, the file that we have. So here we are going to say source dot then the name of the file. So main hello main dot js. Okay, so now we have main dot js here, and still we can have it running. Now we need to save this one. We save it. Now we save this one too. Now you can see that it has come here. JavaScript has come here. We wrote it here, but since we have linked it to the page, it is here. All right. So now it makes our work beautiful because you're going to write all the JavaScript here, the HTML codes here, and then the CSS and the other part. So it's going to actually be three different files in with one website. Okay. All right. So let's deal with the console. Now you can see that once I write hello world, I write it in quotation marks. Okay, I write it in quotation marks, and this introduces us to our data types. Now JavaScript has 4 data types, and they are, so let me make a simple note here. Data types. Now here, I'm going to make it a comment. Okay, and a way to write comment in JavaScript is to use forward slash. Okay, double forward slash, or any amount of forward slash, but it shouldn't be one, more than one. Then this comment, we did comment in HTML, we did comment in CSS. So this is how we comment in JavaScript, forward slash. So we have data types, and you can use two forward slash for single or single line code, a single line comment, or multiple for multiple line comment. Okay, now we need to terminate it. So here you can bring it down and then write other code. So the data types we have um, strings, we have strings. Now let me make it make sure that okay. We have strings. We have integers. We have float. Then we have boolean. Okay, so we have these ones. So these are the data types that we have in JavaScript. We have strings, we have integers, we have float, and then we have booleans. And strings are text elements. They are text elements we use. So you can see that we have hello world here, and it's the text elements. So we need to put them in double quotes so that they suggest it's a it's a string element. So we say um, write them in either we write them in either single quote or double quote. So example. So any element which is written in quotation mark, whether single or double, is called string. Okay, it's called string. And then we have integers, and integers are numbers. Okay, they are numbers, whether whole numbers or other negative numbers and other things. So they are numbers such as 3, 5, etc. So all the numbers in the mathematical expressions are here. We call them integers. And then float are um, so they are float with points. They are numbers with points. So we have example like 3.5, 7.6. So any number that you write in JavaScript that you suggest that it should be float, it should have um, a point in it. Now, when we start programming, the browser will tell us the type of data that we've written. Okay, and Boolean simply um, stands for true or false expressions. Okay, true or false expressions. Okay, they are true or false expressions. So whether a value is true or false, we determine it using the Boolean value. All right. We also have this um, we also have mathematical expressions or operations. Okay, and we know the mathematical expressions. And in JavaScript, we use different mathematical expressions. We have the addition. We have the addition. This one. So let me copy them and then. So we have addition, we have subtraction, which we know is this one. We have concatenation, and concatenation is the same as the addition. Okay, but with this concatenation, we only call it concatenation we are when we are using them to link a string. So you can have addition sign, but when it is being linked, when it is in the middle of strings, we call them concatenation and not addition, because you cannot add words together. The only things we add is integers and then floats. So when we are adding, when we are putting words together, we call it concatenation, and we use the addition sign for it. Okay, we have multiplication, which we use the asterisk sign. We have division as well. Then we have the modulo, which is the percentage sign. Okay, we also have the percentage sign. We have um, powers of numbers, and here we use two types, like asterisk, two asterisks, to suggest the power of a number. So if you want to say 6 raised to the power 5, you use this one raised to the power 5. Okay, and now it gives you the point, the answer. So these are the elements that we would like you to know, and once we start programming, we are going to go over them and you're going to see them in action. All right, so quickly let's try to do some programming. Now there are other keywords that we use in JavaScript. Okay, keywords in JavaScript, and keywords in JavaScript. There are keywords like var, and this is called variable. Okay, and this one is used to declare a variable, like need to store data into a variable. So we have something like variable, maybe um, username. Okay, variable username, and this creates like a memory. This you make this a memory which um, we are going to assign the data to it. Now I forgot to add two other other things here. We have the equal to sign, and this is not equal to, this is assignment, sign, and then we have the equal to sign, which is two of the equal to's. We also have not equal to, and then we write this by saying this not equal to, and we also have the greater than and the less than. Okay, as well. So we say back to the keywords, we have var, and var means variable. So we make this a variable which is going to store a data. Now to store a data into this is when we use the assignment operator, which is the equal to that we know. Then we say username equals. Here it's a name that we are declaring, so we use what? A string. Username equals maybe Albert. Oh, come on. Alberta. So var username equals Alberta, and this is not equals, this is assigning to it. So whenever we call this one, is going to appear. So let's do some programming here. Var username equals Alberta. So here, and we say that we terminate JavaScript codes with semicolon. So codes that you write, you need to add semicolon. Now, if you don't add semicolon, it's not going to, nothing will happen though. But JavaScript would automatically add it for you. But for programming sake, you need to try as much as possible to learn how to, and then where to put your semicolon. So we are going to put it here. So we go to now we want to make use this one in our website. So what are we going to do? We are either going to console log it, or we are going to document write it. So now we are not going to say Alberta again. Okay, now Alberta has been stored into the variable username. So we are going to rather call the username. So here we say console.log, and now there is a variable. So we are not going to add our quotation marks. Okay, we're just going to write them straight away. So we say user name. All right. Now we will save it, and then we reload our browser, and you say that we have hello world. Yeah, that, okay, it's here. So let's delete it, save it, and now you see that we have Alberta here. We see that we did not console.log the Alberta, but we rather did it on the username. Now this username is this Alberta is stored in the username. So whatever is stored in the username will appear here. So we said console.log username, and we had Alberta. Okay, we had Alberta. So this is it. There's a simple programming that we can do. So we first stored Alberta, the name, the string Alberta in username variable, and then we called it. Now here we want to know what type of variable this is. Okay, we want to know what type of variable this is. So we can say console.log um, all right. We want to know the variable type, so the data type. So now we say console.log type of username. Now what type is it? And now it is telling us that it's a string variable. Okay, it's a string it's a string data, and it has given us. So this is quite advanced. So I'll just leave it here. So now really I said that JavaScript will tell us, the browser will tell us the type of thing it was. So if we add 6 here, a number here, and save it and run it, it's going to tell us that it's a number, okay, which is an integer. Okay, now if we also say false, also say false and save it, it's telling us that it's a boolean. Okay, it's a boolean. Now let's go to the simple programming terms, and then this was for so now we save it, we run it, and we have, okay, false here because this is what we had. So Alberta, and the name will be logged on the console. In the same way, if we write it onto the document like this, uh, document dot write username, when we save it, we are going to have Alberta written on the document. So we have Alberta here, then we have Alberta here. So there is how we log something on the console. So we declared a variable, now we called it. We also have another variable called um, const. Const, and const is also like the variable. Now what variable does is when you have variable, you use variable, you can change it later on, but when you use const, you cannot change it. Okay, you cannot change it. So in mobile applications, we use const more, but here we are going to use variable a lot. Okay, we should concentrate on the variable, so I'm not actually going to go into const, but we also have const there, and then we also have let. Okay, we have const, we have let. All right. So, but here we are going to use var, but for the lesson's sake, you need to know that there are other things like const and then let. Okay. So this is what we have. So we can create a variable numbers, then say um, one, two. Okay, then we have it here. Then we can call the numbers on the console. When we save it, now we see we have them in the console. All right. So now let's do some programming here. Let's do some quick programming here. Now, earlier on, I told you about concatenation. That is using the addition to add numbers. Okay, add strings. Sorry, add strings. Using addition to add strings. So here we're going to add some strings here. So we say another. We create another variable. Variable. Okay, so let's say variable first name. And then variable last name. Let's say then we say console dot log. Here we say first name, then we bring the addition sign, last name. Now here is going to, we need to leave a space in between at the entrance because it's going to be a name. Okay, so okay, let's first log it and see. Let's reload it. Now you see that you have Alberto Owusu, but they are put together. Now we want a space to come in between them, so we either put a space after the Alberta or we put it before the Owusu. Okay, so we can have this one, and when we save it, we can have Alberta Owusu. Okay, but there are two different variables. Because of concatenation, we have Alberta Owusu. In the same way, we can do for addition, but when we're dealing with additions, it's going to be we're dealing with numbers. It's going to be addition. Okay, so we have variable first number equals 5. Then we create another variable last number equals 7. Okay, now we say console.log first number plus last number. Now because these ones are um, numbers, they are going to compute them, and let's see what we have. We have 12. Okay, now we have 12 because these are numbers. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm actually going to make the numbers string by putting quotation mark on them. Now I said that any element that you create, once it is in once it is written in either single quotes or double quotes, it's whether numbers or booleans or floats. Once it's in double quote or single quote, it will treat them as string. So now we have 57. In the same way, we have 57. Okay, this is 5 and this is 7, but it is treating this as string and this one as string, and this is number and this is number. So it's going to compute this one, going to add them, while it's going to concatenate this one. Okay. Now to strings, sometimes someone will ask, how do you then write up apostrophe ownership words like Kofi's car and other things, because you're going to use double quote and single quote. Now for you to know, there are two things you write, like maybe, okay, let's say variable owner equals string, Okay, let's say something sentence. Now, variable name does not matter. You decide what name to give to it, okay? But just make sure that when you are calling it, you call it the right variable, okay? Sentence means, okay, so let's say the car is for, now you have the car is for Kofi. Now they are telling you to write it in ownership form, simple terms. So what you are going to write is that maybe you say Kofi's car. Okay, it's actually going to be Kofi's car. But here you either use simple double quote or single quote. So what if I want to use single quote? Now it's going to be like this. If you want to use single quote, it's going to be like this. Um, Now if you do this, the browser will treat this one, or JavaScript will treat this one as the opening quote and this one as the closing quote. So this, the whole of this one here will not appear. It will not come. It will only left with Kofi. Okay. Now to do this, there are two ways you can do to, let me add the last quote. Yes. It doesn't matter you have another quotation mark here. Okay. Now to do this, um there are two ways you can do this. You have an escape character, or you either use double quote in the outside as the main quote and then single quote for the Kofi as apostrophe. Okay. But here there are two things. You either use the escape quote, and then the escape element is the escape character is the backtick, the backslash. So when you click on the backslash, it's going to use this one is going to escape this character. Okay, that which one the character which makes Kofi an ownership. Okay, which is the apostrophe is going to escape it. So here when we save it and run it, it's going to say, oh, we are not console logging it. Okay, we are not console.log short. So when we save it, we will have Kofi's car. Okay, but initially without the escape character, you're not. You see, it's an error to have this, and it's giving us the error on line 38. You see that you have the error on line 38, and this is exactly line 38. Okay, so what we do is that we use the escape character for it, or we use double quotes as the main quote. All right, so we have double quote here, and now we have Kofiska as well. All right, now how do we use boolean? We can say this is how we use boolean. We can create a variable name, that we set to true. Okay, now when we set it to true, we want to we want to know if I don't want to use if, because if is something in, we want to we want to know whether the expression is true or false. Okay, now we will go. Okay, so yeah, we create the variable. Okay, we say variable name equals um Kofi. Okay, and now we come and say name, variable name equals true. I said that with variable you can use it multiple times. Okay, with the constant and other things, and then the let you cannot use multiple times. You cannot reassign it. But here we can reassign it. So the name is Kofi, and then the name is true. Okay, it's true. Now you will not understand this when we go into another element, which is the conditional statement and other things. and I would like to make it for our second lesson, the conditional statements and other things. So let's maintain this. All right. So there's actually a couple of things that we have, and we need to go over this. This is our first lesson in JavaScript. In the second lesson, I'm going to go into a more wilder things. So this is your assignment. Create a main JavaScript. So this is the assignment. I'm going to put it at the end of the lesson. So most of you don't like to watch the lesson to the end. So this is your assignment. So this is our short assignment. Okay, this is our first assignment on JavaScript. So read it and then go over. All right. So I'll add the second lesson to it. Okay, very soon. So thank you, and I hope you go through this lesson very carefully.